In a quiet Texas suburb where porch lights flicker and neighbors wave without asking too many questions, the Taylor family seemed like a symbol of stability. Erica, the youngest daughter, was preparing to graduate college. Danielle, a devoted nurse, had just completed a long stretch of night shifts. Celeste, their mother, kept the home warm with Sunday dinners and laughter that lingered in the halls. They were normal, ordinary, safe, until one autumn morning shattered everything. On October 17, 2023, Millstone police responded to a 911 call from a concerned coworker after Erica missed a scheduled video call. What they found inside the Taylor residence defied logic, compassion, and comprehension. 3 women dead, a scene that hinted not just at violence, but at ritual planning and a deeply personal kind of rage. At the center of it all was Veronica Slate, a former friend, a former guest, and ultimately their executioner. What followed was a frantic statewide manhunt, a chilling confession, and a courtroom reckoning that raised more questions than answers. How does a person unravel so completely? And why did she choose them? What drove her to not only kill, but to leave behind a manifesto titled Last Night of Their Lives? This is a story of love warped by obsession, of trust betrayed by madness, and of a tragedy that left a father flying home to a nightmare. This is a cleansing, a Texas tragedy. Millstone, Oregon, had always lived in the background of American life, tucked between dense, mossy forests and vast swaths of farmland. It was the kind of town where a stranger's arrival raised eyebrows and porch lights flicked on by sunset. People left their keys in the ignition. Kids rode bikes until dusk, and the loudest sounds came from the church bell or the harvest parade in October. That October, the leaves fell in thick golds and reds, and the town felt snug inside its seasonal charm. Halloween decorations began popping up on doorsteps, paper ghosts swaying in the breeze, scarecrows stuffed with hay, and bowls of candy set out by trusting homeowners. At the heart of this community lived the Taylors, Mark and Celeste Taylor, a couple in their mid-50s, and their 2 daughters, Danielle, a 27-year-old nurse who worked long shifts in the neonatal unit at St. Mary's Hospital, and Erica, 23, who had recently opened a yoga studio on Main Street. They were close-knit and warm. Celeste was the outgoing matriarch, leading the town's community theater and known for her contagious laughter. Danielle was fiercely empathetic, often the one people turned to during family emergencies. Erica, the younger daughter, was spirited and kind, with a magnetic personality that drew people in. She had come out as gay at 19, and while it had taken some time for her parents to adjust, they loved her unconditionally. James Taylor, the father and husband, was away that week on business in Chicago. He worked in logistics and traveled often. It was a running joke in the family that something dramatic always happened when he left. Flooded basements, fender benders. But no one could have predicted what would unfold during this trip. Veronica Slate, 30 years old and once a promising art school graduate from Portland, had a different story. To most people, she seemed sharp, creative, and self-assured. Her dark hair was always styled, her eyeliner crisp, her wardrobe carefully curated. She had an edge, something simmering just beneath the surface. Friends later described her as intense, charismatic, and hard to pin down emotionally. When she met Erica Taylor at a music festival in the summer of 2022, their chemistry was instant. Veronica, older and more assertive, had a way of making Erica feel seen. For a time, there were inseparable weekend hikes, late-night diner runs, spontaneous road trips up the coast. But behind closed doors, the passion soured into control. Friends began to notice troubling signs. Erica withdrew. She stopped coming to group hangouts. Her phone buzzed constantly. Texts from Veronica questioning where she was, who she was with, why she hadn't replied faster. A friend once found Erica crying in her car, whispering, "I don't know how to leave her without making things worse." By September 2023, Erica had reached her limit. After a particularly explosive argument that ended with Veronica breaking a ceramic lamp in her apartment, Erica cut contact. She blocked Veronica on every platform, changed the locks on her front door, and warned her family, "If she shows up here, don't let her in." She didn't know it then, but Veronica had already begun planning her revenge. Over the next few weeks, Veronica's internet search history, became a chilling roadmap. She searched for terms like silent kill methods, how to disable alarm systems, and how long does it take to die from a stab wound. She watched videos on knife combat. She ordered a hunting blade online, along with duct tape, gloves, and a flare gun. On October 16th, Veronica rented a dark blue SUV under a false name and packed the trunk with her supplies. She printed out a satellite map of the Taylor residence and highlighted entry points. She wore black clothing, an oversized gray hoodie, and kept her hair tucked under a baseball cap. At 5 a.m. on October 17th, she pulled out of Portland and began the 3-hour drive to Millstone. Her face was expressionless. She had rehearsed every step in her head. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was execution masked as heartbreak. At 2:30 p.m., Celeste Taylor heard a knock at the door. She was in the middle of organizing props for the upcoming Halloween performance at the community center. Just another Wednesday. When she opened the door, she hesitated. Veronica stood there, fidgeting, eyes darting behind Celeste. "I just wanted to grab a few of Erica's things," she said. "I think I left something here before we broke up." Celeste, always kind to her daughter's partners, even exes, stepped aside and let her in. What happened next lasted less than 3 minutes. Veronica waited until Celeste turned her back, then struck. She attacked from behind, stabbing her repeatedly in the abdomen and chest with brutal force. Blood sprayed across the tile floor. Celeste tried to crawl, to scream, but Veronica pressed her weight down and silenced her. At 3:10 p.m., Danielle came home early from her hospital shift. She parked in the driveway, stepped through the front door, and immediately saw the blood. Veronica met her head-on. Danielle was stronger than Celeste, but caught off guard. The struggle moved from the foyer into the living room. Veronica slashed Danielle's arms and shoulder, but the nurse fought back. In a panic, Veronica pulled the flare gun from her bag and fired. The flare ignited Danielle's shirt, and flames spread rapidly. Smoke filled the room. Danielle tried to crawl toward the hallway, but collapsed from burns and smoke inhalation. She was still alive when the fire consumed her lungs. Erica arrived at 6 p.m. She unlocked the door and walked into the house. The lights were dimmed. The air smelled of smoke and something metallic. She called out for her mom. What she found inside didn't make sense until Veronica stepped out of the hallway, holding the bloody hunting knife. Police would later piece together the next 2 hours from a forensic scene and Veronica's own chilling confessions. Veronica didn't kill Erica right away. Instead, she bound her wrists with duct tape and sat her down in the kitchen, right next to her mother's covered body. She made Erica unlock her phone and read aloud the messages from their breakup. "You said you loved me." Veronica said, "Say it again." Neighbors reported hearing muffled screams around 7 p.m., but assumed it was a TV. No one thought to call the police. At 8:13 p.m., Veronica plunged a knife into Erica's chest, delivering the fatal wound. Moments later, she slipped out the back door and was seen on a neighbor's Ring camera, walking away, hoodie up, her hands stuffed in her pockets. She didn't run. She didn't cry. She simply walked. At exactly 8:14 p.m., a signal was sent from the Taylor residence to Millstone PD. It wasn't a call. It was a silent alarm, a distress signal triggered through Erica's phone, linked to her home security app. Investigators believe she activated it just before Veronica delivered the final blow. Officer Jonah Peterson was first on the scene. A 7-year veteran of the force, he knew the Taylor family personally. When he pulled into the driveway and saw the front door ajar, his instinct screamed that something was wrong. The smell hit him first: blood, smoke, charred fabric. What he saw next would haunt him for the rest of his career. Celeste was slumped on the kitchen floor. Danielle was partially burned in the living room, her face unrecognizable. Erica was in her bedroom, surrounded by scattered papers and blood-soaked towels. There were restraints on her wrists and tape remnants near the bed. Peterson didn't say a word as he backed out of the house and radioed for backup. Within minutes, the entire block was sealed off. Crime scene tape fluttered in the autumn wind. A white sheet was hung across the porch to shield the gathering crowd from the gruesome scene inside. James Taylor was in a hotel bar in downtown Chicago when he received the call. He'd just finished reviewing a freight contract and was about to order a bourbon when his phone rang. It was the Millstone Police Department. At first, he thought it was a prank. Then the officer said, "Mr. Taylor, we need you to sit down." James didn't remember the rest of the call. All he remembered was the way his chest tightened, the way the floor disappeared beneath his feet. The last message from Erica had come earlier that day. "I love you, Dad. See you soon." He'd texted back a heart emoji. By midnight, James was on the first flight home, stunned, hollowed out, clinging to the hope that it was some kind of mistake. It wasn't. The manhunt began before dawn on October 18th. Police traced the rental SUV's plate to a false identity, but surveillance footage at a Millstone gas station caught Veronica Slate's real face. A bolo be on the lookout was issued statewide. FBI behavioral analysts were brought in. They reviewed her search history, her known addresses, her psychological profile. Every friend and ex-partner was questioned. One Portland acquaintance admitted, "I always knew she'd snap one day, but not like this. Not to them." By noon, a credit card linked to Veronica was used at a roadside motel near Salem. Law enforcement arrived within 40 minutes. They found her unconscious in the bathtub, an empty pill bottle nearby. Her wrists showing faint hesitation cuts. She wore the same hoodie from the crime scene. Medics administered Narcan and rushed her to the hospital. She was revived within hours. When she woke up, she reportedly whispered, "Did I finish it?" The trial began in May 2024. Veronica Slate, clad in a county-issued jumpsuit, sat stone-faced as the charges were read. 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of unlawful imprisonment, and 1 count of aggravated torture. She pled guilty to the murders. Her attorney, citing mental health issues and emotional trauma, pushed for a reduced sentence and insisted the torture charge was exaggerated. But prosecutors had evidence. Photos of Erica's restraints, audio logs from the smart speaker that picked up part of the confrontation, and, most damning, a handwritten letter from Veronica's apartment titled "Last Night of Their Lives." The letter detailed a step-by-step plan for how Veronica intended to confront, kill, and reclaim control from the Taylor women. During sentencing, Veronica finally spoke. Her voice was quiet but deliberate. "She left me. They all took her away. Now they're gone, I'm free." The courtroom froze. James Taylor, seated in the front row, stared straight ahead. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, he rose slowly and took the stand. "You didn't just murder my family," he said. "You burned down my life. You didn't take their lives. You erased joy from this town, from everyone who loved them. But I hope you live every single day with their faces haunting you. Death would have been too easy for you." The judge handed down the maximum sentence, 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. The town of Millstone has never recovered. The Taylor home stood empty for months, its windows boarded up, a dried memorial of flowers and candles on the porch. Eventually, it was demolished. A small community garden was planted in its place, with a bench bearing a plaque, "In loving memory of Celeste, Danielle, and Erica Taylor. The light they gave will never dim." The community theater renamed its annual October play in Celeste's honor. Danielle's hospital wing now features a portrait of her near the NICU. Erica's yoga studio was taken over by her closest friend, who turned it into a space for trauma healing and grief support. James Taylor moved away in early 2025. Too many memories, too many ghosts. He now speaks occasionally at domestic violence awareness events, reminding audiences that obsession, when unchecked, can turn into something monstrous. "Erica told us she was scared," he once said during Q&A, "and we believed her, but we didn't know how fast it could all fall apart." In the end, the Taylor family tragedy became more than just a headline. It became a cautionary tale about ignoring red flags, about how deep heartbreak can cut, and about what it means to lose everything in the blink of an eye. And for Millstone, the silence left behind is louder than the chaos that ripped through it on that October evening. This narrative is based on real events and has been crafted for informational and storytelling purposes only. While efforts have been made to present the facts accurately, certain names, locations, and details may have been changed or dramatized to protect the privacy of individuals involved and to enhance narrative flow. This story contains descriptions of violence, trauma, and sensitive subject matter that may be disturbing to some readers. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. The views and interpretations expressed in this script do not represent those of law enforcement, legal professionals, or any family members of the victims or individuals involved. This content is not intended to glorify or sensationalize criminal behavior, but rather to explore the psychological, emotional, and societal impacts of such tragedies. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health issues, please seek professional help or contact a mental health support service in your area. If you're captivated by real-life mysteries and chilling crime stories, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. There's so much more to uncover, and you won't want to miss a single case.